Welcome back to another episode of the Flower Files, hosted by Wildly Native Flower Farm and yours truly, Liza. Today, we are going to chat a little bit about something that I low-key dread and love all at the same time. And I know there's lots of people who feel the same way. The end of season garden clean out. I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like the end of season when I stand back and first of all, it's usually freezing and I absolutely hate the cold. So that's where I start with the frustration of I have to go outside in the cold and clean up. And then I'm usually standing there looking at everything going, and I definitely have a section of garden that got way too far away from me. So trying to figure out what to do about that section of garden that is way out of control. And I really messed up that section of garden, or a plant didn't do well, or it was a trial, or I just plain ran out of time. Trying to figure out the best way to clean things up and make sure it's done correctly is always a big thing. And I feel like there's definitely three different schools of thought. I feel like there's definitely, the final garden, have to put everything to bed and everything has to be in its place people, where everything has to be super clean, neat and tidy. You're not really seeing anything. Everything is clipped back. I feel like there's the other folks who are like, I'm going to pull out the weeds, leave the leaves, and maybe hope that the weed seeds don't come back the following year. And then there's the other folks who definitely are, I'll deal with it in the spring. So I feel like there's definitely a combination of where of all of those places land. And there's definitely different schools of thought. I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like my shade garden is different than my sun garden. My garden that has more leaves in it is sometimes a little more intimidating in the fall, but it's much easier to clean up in the spring. I feel like we get all of this information from all of these places about leave the leaves, and then other places are remove the leaves, and it's just, I don't know what to do sometimes. So then I end up standing there with all of my tools and going, well, I don't know where to start. So I feel like garden clean out can be a little confusing and a little frustrating because you want to leave certain things for the birds. I'm a huge bird person, so I'm always trying to leave seed heads like coneflower and black-eyed Susan and all of those types of really seedy plants for the birds. And they definitely come through and they definitely eat them at different times of year. It's always interesting to see the patterns that they chew them down to. I guess they don't chew them. I guess they peck them. That they peck them down to. It's interesting to see the different ways that animals are tucked in, more insects, but definitely lots and lots of insects are disturbed and moved throughout the garden cleanup. So trying to determine, I try to make sure all of the leaves are off the house or any structure. We have a garden shed, and that always seems to collect the leaves. I think just the way that the wind blows, they just tend to sit. And then I always worry about them being close and then it gets wet. And then is it going to cause rot or decay, or is it going to be a space for a mouse to be able to hide? But if the mouse is hiding, what else is hiding in there too? So there's lots of insects. I know there's lots of bumblebees. And I know a lot of our native insects actually will overwinter inside stalks of empty plants. So not empty plants, but like, you have that stalk, that flower stalk with all of the emptiness inside because now it's dead. Well, there's eggs, there's hibernating, there's all kinds of stuff that happens inside there. So if you're looking for a quick way to clean things up, I know one of the things that I like to do if I'm looking to just clean up a section and I know there's nothing there that's really left after the birds have come through, I try to tackle the garden in a different segment section so it's not so overwhelming. So there's not so much to do and it's not so dreaded. There's definitely days in the winter where I need to be outside and I need something that is outside in the sun. I need a little nature. So I tend to go outside on those days and try to take different sections of my garden and clean them out. And I think there's a huge difference between a vegetable garden and a flower garden. Where a vegetable garden, you have to clean those things out because if you have tomatoes that are still in the vine and they're still dropping fruit, and then I don't know about you, but cherry tomatoes, ooh, man, those guys really, really, really reseed and are plentiful and end up everywhere. So I feel like when it comes to fruits and vegetables, it's much more important to clean up, and there's a higher disease pressure than if you're just talking of a flower garden.
Hey guys, Lizzie here. I bet you didn't know this about me, but I am gluten free, and one of the things that I struggle with is going to the grocery store and finding the foods that fit my dietary needs. What I have been doing for the past couple of months is ordering from Hungry Root. Now, Hungry Root is an online company where you can order groceries off of their website. It's full of produce, crackers, cookies, to muffins, to meats, and all the different types of snacks and things like that. They have made my life so much easier in the process of finding foods that fit my dietary needs. There are filters that you can adjust, such as non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, paleo, different preferences and things like that. So what they have done for us, because they're such a generous company, the Hungry Root team has given us a 40% off discount code on your first box. So if you use the code FLOWER40, and that's capital FLOWER 40 at checkout, you will get 40% off your first box. I'm so excited to team up with these guys. They've made such an impact on my life in the morning and to my day-to-day life, and I hope you experience the exact same thing that I do. All of the information will be linked down below, including the link to where it should already be pre-applied to your cart when you hit the link and go to their website, and I will also add the code at the bottom for easy access in our show notes. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy your first box through Hungry Root.
Where a flower garden, some of the things that I like to make sure that are cleaned up and trimmed correctly, obviously any of my shrubs. So there's definitely certain times of year, and man, I have made mistakes in my pruning. I have pruned hydrangeas at the wrong time of year before by accident, or if something has like fallen on it or broken it, or it just doesn't look right, or I just need to trim it back because it's the wrong size. And then this spring, I'm so sad that I've cut them wrong. It's so frustrating. Um, but some of that stuff is just kind of garden cleanup. And wintertime, this time of year, getting ready to go into the holidays, a lot of the times I'm looking for cool seeds and berries and pods and all of that kind of stuff. So I naturally have things that I'm going to be cutting. And it's so crazy to me. I don't know if you guys see it in your garden, but there's definitely times where I'm cutting things back and I'm like, I'm just going to cut this and throw it into my compost pile, or I throw it back into the woods. But if you're looking for things for wreaths, you add a little spray paint to things. And I have learned through my design team has taught me very well that don't throw that out, don't cut that off, spray it, repurpose it, tuck it in with other things, and now you have this different texture. Where before I was like, oh my gosh, these seed heads, no, the seed heads are actually kind of cool. So it's a different perspective. um, I'm very fascinated if you guys are those perfectly manicured garden people. When they come in and the landscaping folks or cleanup team comes in and it's like everything's gone. Like there's nothing there. All of the leaves are gone, all of the flowers are cut back, everything is just perfect. That would kind of make me sad actually if that was my garden, because then I wouldn't have anything to an excuse for me to just still go out and escape into the garden. Plus, it takes away all of those beneficial things. But if you're looking to maybe make sure that you don't have mint, for example, that's something that I always trim back. I always try to make sure any of those seed heads are trimmed off because I know that aside from it just growing underground, I know that there's definitely certain seeds that really reseed heavily. Chamomile is another one. That is a huge reseeder. And if you're not careful, it can reseed into the wrong spaces. Yarrow, I absolutely love this plant, but didn't know due to me not having, I either didn't research it well enough or just I assumed that's what I did. I made a huge mistake and I planted the Colorado variety of yarrow, not the native beautiful yellow golden. I planted both, love both, but the Colorado yarrow is so prolific and it just goes to seed everywhere. So that is one that I know that I have to maintain and stay on top of. Baptisia is another one that I'm fascinated with how much it grows underground and just gets fuller and bigger every year. I feel like that's one of those plants you put in the ground and you're probably not going to want to move that because there's so many. It's just such a robust plant. Um, so so how do I do a garden cleanup and not feel bad that I have this section of my garden that I definitely have either let go or it got away from me or I just really screwed up in the corner. I always try to make sure I'm being kind to myself because a little wild is okay. um, but sometimes it's hard to keep up with everything. So sometimes when there's a plant that I know that the birds have eaten all the seeds, there's nothing really left for it, but I don't want to completely remove everything. I want to maybe make sure some of that leaf litter is down. Or if I'm just tired, if I'm just flat out tired and want to clean it up because I want the backyard to look nice, but I don't want to have to get out the wheelbarrow and get out the pitchfork and get out the hard rake and get out like all of the tools. Sometimes, honestly, what I do, if it's a tall perennial, my Joe Pye weed is exactly what I'm picturing for this. My Joe Pye weed is massive. It's beautiful. I love it. It's an incredible plant for beneficials, for pollinators. But when it comes to cleaning it up in the fall, sometimes there's some plants in the fall and winter, things are very polite and you can just kind of snap them off. So with this, I'm picturing a daylily flower stalk that's left. You can just go in and pop, 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 pop. They pop right off and they're gone and they're out of the garden. My Joe Pye weed doesn't do that. And if I try to snap it, it breaks in the wrong place and then it looks just like sticks and it needs a little more care. So instead of me going in, grabbing all the tools and the wheelbarrow, the tarp, or whatever it is I'm going to be using that day, I actually will take my clippers, go in, and I'll cut in 4 sections, top, half, and like 3/4. So, uh, how do you do that math? Like, I cut it down. I go, that's how I cut it down. So I have smaller pieces. I can still mulch over it in the spring. Maybe it's more than 4 cuts, depending on the height of it. I do have like mine gets up to about my shoulder. So I don't have the massive one. I have like a smaller Joe Pye variety. It is also a little sun starved, so it doesn't always get to the full potential of height. The one year I grew a variety and it was beautiful, but it grew past the front floor of the house. So it was also where the gutter spout came out. It had all the water it wanted, it had all the light it wanted, and it was beautiful, but it was massive. And it was like, wrong variety. So know your varieties. That's a different topic for a different day. Um, but it's actually really funny to, oh, I can't tell you how many times that I have dug things up and been like, well, planted that in the wrong spot, or planted it in a great spot for it, but the wrong spot for where I needed it to be. So you never quite know. You never quite know sometimes those little things.
Hey guys, Lizzie here. I bet you didn't know this about me, but I am gluten free, and one of the things that I struggle with is going to the grocery store and finding the foods that fit my dietary needs. What I have been doing for the past couple of months is ordering from Hungry Root. Now, Hungry Root is an online company where you can order groceries off of their website. It's full of produce, crackers, cookies, to muffins, to meats, and all the different types of snacks and things like that. They have made my life so much easier in the process of finding foods that fit my dietary needs. There are filters that you can adjust, such as non GMO, dairy free, gluten free, paleo, different preferences, and things like that. So, what they have done for us, because they're such a generous company, the Hungry Root team has given us a 40% off discount code on your first box. So, if you use the code FLOWER40, and that's capital FLOWER 40 at checkout, you will get 40% off your first box. I'm so excited to team up with these guys. They've made such an impact on my life in the morning and to my day to day life. And I hope you experience the exact same thing that I do. All of the information will be linked down below, including the link to where it should already be pre applied to your cart when you hit the link and go to their website. And I will also add the code at the bottom for easy access in our show notes. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy your first box through Hungry Root.
Um, I feel like everybody does their garden a little differently. And in that quest to have as many flowers throughout the year as possible, knowing what time of year to clean certain things out is really important as well. And what your exposures are. Do you have a north, south, east, west facing exposure? Because that's going to determine how those plants grow. Do you have and it's little teeny tiny things that you notice over time that you're like, oh, I should have planted that there instead of here. Case in point, we had a beautiful, absolutely beautiful rosemary plant. And I feel like so many times people don't anticipate the size that something's going to get because when you're outside, it's hard to determine scale many times unless it's something that you do all the time. There's so many times where I've put something in the ground and be like, this is going to be great all together. And then it grows all together. And I'm like, wow, did I totally misplant that? So we had this rosemary plant. I love rosemary. It smells good. It flowers. It's a great herb. It's one of those where you walk past and you just want to brush it and smell it. So we had this beautiful rosemary plant and I had planted it near our heater. Um, oh, the big fan, the forced air heater thing that does all of the magic that makes the house warm. Yeah, I planted it near that and didn't anticipate that the residual heat from that would be creating such a microclimate for it. It was massive. It was absolutely massive. And it became obstructive to the return and all of the vents and everything that it needed. So I would trim it and then I would, tuck another section and then I would trim it back a little bit and try to like help it grow in a space. And actually it got to be so huge the one year that it split right down the center. That was the end of the rosemary for us. But we had like 4 feet of snow on top of it. It was an unusual time. But knowing your little microclimates, you can sometimes push what you're trying to keep or plant. Lavender is a great example for that as well. However, the lavender that's been up around the house that I've tried to plant, and a couple times I didn't realize that the offset of water from the gutter would extend quite as far. I just figured it would come down, it would come out, and it wouldn't soak as far left and right as it did. And again, there's definitely times where there's extra stuff that maybe you don't anticipate or you don't realize those teeny tiny little microclimates and what it actually creates. That being said, if you have planted something somewhere that you're going, I need to make a change, winter and fall, especially fall, not dead of winter, obviously, when things are frozen, but fall is a fantastic time to dig those things up and move them because it has already gone into dormancy. You're not going to shock it because the plant is technically already sleeping. And obviously, I'm talking about perennials and shrubs here. I'm not talking about annuals. You're not going to dig them up and transplant them. They're usually dead. But you're going to be able to pick them up, move them, not give them shock, not stress them, and then in a normal season of weather, you're going to have lots of moisture that's going to help everything kind of get settled into the ground and know, hey, this is your new home. Get comfortable here because we want you in this new space kind of thing. So if you have to transplant things, if you have to do any of that kind of stuff, that's all huge to do then. Um, Invasive species. I think invasive species is another thing this time of year where I try to pay really close attention to. Where have I seen them come up? Where are they flourishing? And why? What is happening in that section of garden? Does it mean I haven't mulched well? Does it mean I haven't done something throughout the year? Is it just back to that weedy corner that I that I inevitably have? That I just, are they coming from there? Or did a bird just randomly drop some things in and I just need to get it out? We had an issue a couple of years ago with mile a minute vine. I was totally unfamiliar with this weed. It was something that a bird must have dropped in, and it looks really pretty and it has a really neat leaf. But I didn't know until I had reached into it to pull it out that it also had thorns, little teeny tiny sharp little thorns. And when you go to pull it out, ooh wee, does it grab you. Um, so know your weeds so they don't grab you by mistake. But I think know your invasives, know the plants that you have in your garden that you want to make changes about, know what could possibly become an invasive just because it's reseeded, not because that's its nature. Find out if you have any pests or disease or anything like that, and what you can do better next year. I think that's one of my favorite parts, is looking at the garden and being like, okay, this worked well, this didn't work well, I need to trim this back. And if I transplant this, what am I going to put in its place? Mother Nature does not like an empty space. She will fill it with weeds in a heartbeat. And similar perspective for folks who are growing anything in containers. I feel like container growing, that's the time of year too. If you have that porch or that patio or that pot, don't forget, if you have evergreens in there, maybe give them a little bit of fertilizer to kind of sweeten that soil for them. They're not going to be able to get nutrients naturally. This time of year is also a great time of year as you're cutting things back. You've got those sticks and seeds and pods. Maybe you dress up your pots and you just make them fun. I see all of these really cool things on social media about how people take pots and they spray paint them and they add all of this stuff to it and they look really neat afterwards. For like, they take these pots and now all of a sudden they look like a hot chocolate container, and they filled it with plants and seeds. And this was one of my favorites. I saw people had their mums that had died and they spray painted them to make them look Christmassy. So instead of it being dead, they spray painted them white and they looked Christmassy, and then they stuck other greens amongst them. So if you have a mum and it's in a pot and you're one of those crafty people, because I would end up spray painting like the floor. But that was a fun thing that I saw. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, most mums are perennials. So if you put them in the ground, cut them back, they should, depending on the weather and how you take care of them, but they should come back the following year. So mums are a really, really, really forgiving plant, and they're one of my favorites for the fall because they have such great color. And now that I know that you can maybe spray paint them and make them fun, makes it even cooler. And last but not least, know your plants. I feel like there's many times where I have gone to the garden center, looked at a plant and been like, ooh, that's a cool variety, or ooh, that's really neat, or just something different that maybe I've read about or seen, or I just want to trial. Know your plants and know how they need to be taken care of, and don't mess up your hydrangeas like I did and cut them back at the wrong time of year. But So that's my real quick hints and tips. There's lots and lots of different tools that I'm sure everybody uses, but I feel like this time of year, the biggest tool that I use is my rakes. I love my hori hori knife. Looks like something from a scary movie, but I love the hori hori knife because it can dig, it can cut, there's so much that you can do with it. A good pair of clippers that are sharp. There's lots of resources online for different ways to trim certain things. And if you have fruits and vegetables, you definitely want to clean up any of that dropped fruit, any of that leaf litter that could potentially cause any type of issues for next year, because man, I love me a good tomato. So, but that's it for today. I will definitely chat with you guys soon, and I can't wait to hear how everybody weighs in. Are you that immaculate garden? Are you the I get to it little bit, or are you the I'll leave it till spring and deal with it then? I hope you have a great week, and I look towards chatting with you soon. Toodles!
Hey guys, just dropping a line to tell you about Patreon.
So I asked them, meaning Mom and Amber, what is Patreon anyway? Because I honestly had no idea. So we're going to explain it to you from our perspective so that you understand and so that I understand.
Because the first time I saw it, I was like, Patron, we're drinking tequila? Great. So Patreon is for less than a cup of coffee, those fancy coffees that y'all like, a day, you can sign up to become one of our members.
A little family.
Exactly. And what does that get us?
It gets us some freebies, some special episodes that other people do not get access to. You can interact with us on a special platform where we can ask you questions and interact with you. It's tons of fun.
Mm-hmm. And even on those special episodes, we might be less censored than we are already. And we're going to have a couple fun ones that we can just kind of throw in there and talk about and laugh and go on tangents and have fun. So I hope that you all enjoy it because we're going to have fun along the way. We're crazy, crazy, crazy excited.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Back to the episode now. Bye.
Gotcha!